This video is going to cover center point mode and then also show you two applications for it. And when you go to the Create window, you'll notice that there's three choices in this cut mode menu. There's WYSIWYG, there's origin point, and there's center point. And so center point, if you're going to use center point mode, you would simply choose it instead of the other two. All right, so now then let's just talk about what it does. So over here I have a matte simulation with some material on it, and then I have a circle over here. And of course, if I was in WYSIWYG mode and I placed the circle up here, then I would be setting the origin, on my material down here in the corner. And then that particular shape, it would cut in the same relative location as I have it here on the screen because my piece of material and the size I made the document area happen to be the same. All right, and then of course, if I move the circle down, let's say down to this point, well then it would cut down here. Again, same relative point. If I were using origin point mode, then I would be setting the origin just a little ways inside the material so I don't cut off of it. And then of course, regardless of where the circle is, the circle will cut down here just inside the right hand edge and the bottom edge. That's where it would cut in origin point mode. Now center point mode's a little similar to origin point in that it doesn't matter where you have it here. You can have it located anywhere you want. The difference is that you're going to be setting the origin. Wherever you set the origin, the circle's going to cut around it so that that origin would be right in the middle. So for that reason, you have to be very careful because you don't want to set your origin down here like where you normally would set it, because otherwise your design would end up cutting off the material both to the right and below it. All right, so you need to make sure you have wherever you're setting the origin on the cutter itself with the blade tip is going to allow that size of a circle to be cut. And that's why it kind of has only special applications, which I'll show you. Another thing before I go on to the special applications is that you want to make sure that you don't rely on this window. When you're in center point mode, it's just going to show you kind of like what it would be if it was in WYSIWYG mode. So you can't use this as indication because the software doesn't know where you're putting the blade tip over there on the material. It has no way of knowing. So that's why you can't use that window. You kind of just have to, judge for yourself. Again, think about the size of the circle and then how far in. And again, it's because it's really used for special applications. So one application would be, let's say, in paper crafting. Now, let's say I had a tag shape that I want to cut out from a pattern material, and I want to make sure that when it cuts out, this particular stripe, this stripe of hearts, ends up in the middle of the tag. So this is where center point is very useful. What I would do is that I'm going to come over and I'm going to, I have my little origin and I'm going to set it. Now again, I couldn't set it over here along this row of stripes because then half my tag would cut off the material and that wouldn't work. I also can't set this too low because then it would cut too far down. So what you can do instead is you want to set an origin, kind of where the middle of the tag would be, and then whatever you want to use for reference. Now I'm using this particular heart right here on this particular, pattern. And then, the way you would mark it is probably like with just like a little pencil dot, something you can erase afterwards, just something that, you can use because you want to use the camera to set the origin so that it's extremely precise. Because if you just try to judge it with a blade tip, you might be a little bit off. And so your stripes will be a little bit too much to the right or too much to the left. And you're like, oh, no, I wanted it perfectly centered. Well, that's why the camera is so extremely useful. And so then, with that origin set, then when it cuts out that tag, you're going to end up with it cut just like this. It's wherever that center of that tag was, it's going to cut that tag around that origin, and then you end up with your cut tag. The other one is engraving. With engraving, let's say you've set up, let's say you're going to engrave from a 4 by 6 inch piece of acrylic or a mirror or something like that, and you've measured it. And this one is kind of important for center point mode. You want to have some object in which you're going to be able to determine where the middle of the object is, all right, for setting the origin. You can't have some kind of funky shape because it's going to make it really hard to figure out where that center point is. So here I went ahead and I set up a 4 by 6 rectangle, did the design, and then before you get ready to engrave, one of the things you might want to do is to select this outer shape that you're not going to send. This just represents, the item you're going to be engraving on, and set it to print plus cut print, because that way it can't possibly be sent to the cut window. Now, there's other things you can, presumably do, like, well, let's put it this way. You can also remember, if you on the layers panel, to go hide that layer, make it not show, and that's fine. But what if you forget, right? And then you go over and start engraving, you realize, oh my gosh, it's trying to engrave the outside right along the edge of my particular mirror, and that's, it's a disaster moment. Well, that's why if you said to print plus cut print, it can't be sent. Okay, so then let's go on. Let me turn on my simulation here. In this case, I made my simulated mat here nice and large so that it actually represents the same size as the material. So here's the item. I've put it on the mat. And the reason I did this is because in order to find the center point, now you can just take a ruler and measure it out and draw lines and stuff, but you could also, use the mat to help you line up also. So here I just show that I put in the dashed lines that would go right along the grid, because this is, a very standard size of a piece of acrylic. It's in an even number of inches, in other words. So it made it easy to find where that would be. And then, again, you're going to need to make a mark wherever, you figured out where the center point is. You want to make a little mark. Now, be careful about that, because obviously, if you use a Sharpie, that Sharpie might become a permanent mark on your item, and you don't want that. So try using a pencil, or, there might be some other little something you can use to make that little mark, like a little pinpoint or something, just something so that the camera can pick it up. Because again, you want to be very, very precise. Okay, and then once you've done that, once you have your dashed lines and everything, and you send it, to engrave, you see you've used that, set that origin using the camera, then your design should come out perfectly centered, just like you had it in your original design. So anyway, I hope this helps. If you have any questions about how center point works, just definitely post them on one of the groups, or you can contact me privately.